Okay. Make sure I have my arrows right here. Let's see. Okay. A lot of you know that the theme recently of city planning in Cleveland in general has been creating connections, improving the quality of life in Cleveland by creating connections. My role here tonight is to talk to you about how there is a connection between the lakefront planning that we've done in the recent past and the lakefront planning and development work that's about to take place now. It's a simple fact that Cleveland owes its very existence to the water. Moses Cleveland and his colleagues from Connecticut founded our city because of the commerce that was made possible by shipping on Lake Erie and the Cuyahoga River. And you all knew that Cleveland rocked, but you didn't know that Moses Cleveland rocked. He rocks. Okay. But naturally, Cleveland's first use of the lakefront was for shipping, and later for the industries that use the water for the shipment of raw materials and manufactured products. Our use of the lakefront for shipping and industry was not an accident of history. It was actually a mandate of history. That's why we're here. In recent decades, however, we as planners and as citizens have realized that if Cleveland is to remain competitive in the 21st century as a place for business and for living, we must capitalize on our lakefront and riverfronts as amenities for recreation and scenic enjoyment, not just as a place for shipping and industry. But because shipping and industry will remain an important part of Cleveland's economy for many, many decades to come, we need to strike a balance between the use of our lakefront for industry and for quality of life enhancements. And of course, some of our competition has already done what we're trying to do in Cleveland, has already taken its first steps. In 2004, December of 2004, the City Planning Commission adopted the Waterfront District Plan. This is the cover of that plan. More recently, the city has adopted a comprehensive citywide plan which restates and expands on some of those themes. One of the themes is making Cleveland a great place by identifying and building upon our unique assets, not copying other cities, not just addressing our problems, but building on our assets. Clearly, our greatest asset is Lake Erie, and the citywide plan does, as part of its vision, identify Cleveland's future as an accessible, as a city known as a waterfront town with an accessible lakefront and riverfront connected to our neighborhoods and to our city. The plan also, as part of the vision, identifies Cleveland as a place for healthy living with walkable neighborhoods and bike routes, things that Cleveland really historically has not been identified with, but which Cleveland certainly can be and is working to become. Again, the Waterfront District Plan laid out a pretty specific vision for the waterfront. It divided the waterfront into the west side out at Edgewater Park and Whiskey Island, the downtown area, and the east side. I would say what most people consider the centerpiece of that waterfront plan was the proposal to create a world-class downtown waterfront district with mixed-use development, housing, recreation, retail, office by the waterfront. This is the depiction seen in the waterfront plan. It was never meant to be a final plan, an actual building or development plan. It was meant to be a concept for use. What we're about to do in the next few months is to take this plan and to make it real, to take a concept plan and turn it into a true development and real estate plan to move this off of the planning bookshelf and into real development on the ground to move Cleveland forward. Obviously, we can't do this unless the current tenant of this property finds a way to move. The Port Authority now occupies the land that's called out for this world-class downtown waterfront. A lot of you know that the Waterfront District Plan, as adopted in 2004, proposed that the port move off of this prime downtown lakefront land between the Cuyahoga River and East 9th Street, but proposed that it moves to a location which is different than the one we're going to be discussing over the next few months. And as shown in this plan, that large mass of land at the top right of the screen is a new confined disposal facility that was proposed as the new dredge disposal site and the new home for the port. The good news is that since this plan was done, the Port Authority, under the leadership of Adam Wasserman, has gotten real serious about making this move, and has worked with the Army Corps of Engineers and with the city and the public to look at possible sites. And a number of sites were studied. Eventually, the decision was made that the most promising site seems to be an area just north of East 55th Street. What it has going for it that the Whiskey Island site didn't have going for it is the Whiskey Island site has no connection to the freeway system that had to be created. And it was a fairly long route to reach the freeways, and since that time, that route has gotten more difficult because one of the major segments of that is a hillside that has been slipping along Riverbed Street, which is a fairly big repair bill. The other thing is that, actually I would say since Adam Wasserman took the presidency of the Port Authority, there's been a renewed attention to using the port to spur economic development. We all want that. We want jobs. We want jobs to come from our port. Looking at the west side site near Whiskey Island, the problem was you have Edgewater Park, you have utility uses there, you have Whiskey Island and Wendy Park. You don't have a lot of industrial land that's ripe for future economic development. Whereas with the East 55th Street site, many of you know, not only is it right on the freeway, it's right there at I-90, but it's right near what you might call the St. Clair Lakeside Industrial District, which has a lot of room for expansion for more intensive industrial development. And the idea is that a port can spur that economic development and bring more jobs to Cleveland, which is what we all want. Finally, one key condition, by the way, the City Planning Commission approved the concept of an East 55th Street port back in March of 2008, but there were a lot of questions still to be answered. One of them was, what do you do with everything you're going to displace at the East 55th Street site, namely a marina, fishing piers, and lakefront recreation land? So we have worked, myself, Linda Henriksen on the City Planning staff who's here, with the Port Authority staff and URS, its consultants, to come up with at least a preliminary plan for how those recreation amenities could be replaced, and not just replaced, but enhanced. And we're not here to talk about this in detail this evening, but I wanted you to know there is a plan. It's being brought out to the community. In the past 2 months, I think we've held 5 or so different community meetings in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood, the Glenville neighborhood, and downtown to show people the possibility of a relocated marina, fishing piers, enhanced lakefront recreation, a better connection to Gordon Park, and a nexus with the Dike 14 recreation area and nature preserve. So with that, that's my introduction, and my main point was just to show how this is a continuing process. The lakefront plan that we were involved in a few years back is continuing and being implemented through the process we're starting this evening. And thank you.